Breaking news from Capitol Hill. Several members of Congress have been offered extra security tonight after threats were made against them and their families. Scott Thuman now is live with more on this. Scott, what's the story? Is this all about health care?
It is, Leon, and you mentioned that we're talking about threats not only to members of Congress, but also to their children. As you know, it's been a very contentious issue. We saw some severe evidence of that if you were here at the Capitol on Sunday especially. But we do know that added security is being offered to members of Congress as a result of these numerous threats. The anger over health care reform is reaching a concerning level for members of Congress. During the vote, there were racial and discriminatory slurs. Now, there are threats of violence.
When people start talking in the rhetoric of putting people on firing lines, that if they don't do something, they will have physical harm done to them, that activity ought to be unacceptable in our democracy.
Representative James Clyburn said it is comparable to hatred seen during the civil rights fight.
What I saw on Saturday, especially out in the streets, and what I heard was very reminiscent of that history.
The FBI and Capitol Police are now investigating. Democrat Bart Stupak reportedly received messages saying, "You're dead. We know where you live." And at the Democratic offices in Rochester, New York, windows have been smashed. Today, the White House was asked if President Obama is aware of the threats.
We ought to exercise those views, not in a way that threatens anybody's safety or security, not in any way that foments violence.
Majority Leader Hoyer did not say how many members of Congress are now receiving that added security, but he did say that at least 10 have reported some sort of threat. Now, on top of it all, they are asking that Republicans stand side by side with Democratic leaders in denouncing this sort of activity and hopefully tamping down on some of that anger and passion. Live on Capitol Hill tonight, Scott Thuman, ABC 7 News.
All right, thank you for that, Scott. And we're also getting word here that these threats may have turned dangerous in Virginia. Police are investigating a severed propane line at the Charlottesville home of a Virginia congressman's brother. Representative Tom Perriello, a Democrat from Charlottesville, voted in favor of the health care bill, and officials say the congressman's brother was not harmed in the incident.
Following a disputed election and a tie vote, the U.S. Congress installs the most unpopular president in U.S. history as David Jefferson Adams becomes the 44th President of the United States. Shortly after the election, increased unrest, rioting, and a growing number of militias have given rise to ever-increasing domestic terrorism. In response, the President invokes the Homeland Security Act and declares martial law on the West Coast and other areas of the country. Though highly contested, a Supreme Court ruling sidesteps the electoral process, disqualifying popular presidential candidates from several states. Public outrage explodes when a sham election leads to incumbent David Adams accepting a second term in office. During the 57th Inauguration Day ceremonies, Washington, D.C. is struck by a low-yield nuclear weapon, killing David Adams and most of the U.S. Congress. The destruction of Washington, D.C. effectively breaks the chain of succession, sending the nation into chaos. In an emergency vote, the European Union deploys peacekeepers in the greater D.C. area to secure international interests. With separatist sentiment rising, California's governor declares home rule and secedes from the Union. Texas follows quickly and declares sovereignty, taking neighboring states with them and forming the Republic of Texas. Now, the once United States of America lie in ruin. The time for words has passed, and a second American Civil War now erupts as 7 factions wage war across the land. They battle one another to reclaim a nation, to restore peace, to rebuild this shattered union.